Thank you again for being here. I know there's been a great conference so far with amazing information, and now we're going to shift to a different area of nutrition and provide you with a family perspective. I'm Linda Russo, and I am the family leader for 3 graduate training programs at UAB. And I provide the family perspective to interns, trainees, students, and faculty. Our goal is to enhance both the traditional education experience and seasoned professionals with the family-patient point of view. So your training will be well-rounded and your healthcare delivery will be the most effective. That's our same goal for this part of the conference. So at this time I would like to introduce the family panel. Susan Pinnell, her son Ben, Tracy Crone and her Remy, and Celine with Pace, and Joanne with Ashley. So I'm going to ask you all to talk about your family's journey and touch upon some things about nutrition, what your life has been like with your child, and just talk to the trainees and educate them.
Hi guys, this is one of the most fun places that I get to talk because we saw the most gains in my child, and I'll tell you a little bit about that, by actually changing his diet and making sure he got the right nutrition. So it's exciting to talk to you because I know all you guys are just world changers, and you're going to go out there and really help a lot of families. And so from sitting at the chair that I'm sitting in as a parent, I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. I know you started this journey and you're almost done, so that's great. But I just wanted to say thanks to you and what you want to do in the future. So I have a child who's 12. He actually is on the spectrum. He has a lot of special medical needs. He has a P10 mutation, which is actually what causes autism. It causes some mitochondrial dysfunction as well. So we have some complicated things to work through. But what's interesting is when he started crashing, there he is right there, y'all, he's so cute. And that's my hubs. Actually, he's been fighting cancer the last 3 years, and surprisingly enough, diet and nutrition has been really key. He did a clinical trial. He actually almost died 3 times. Like really, they were, just one of my closest friends, so she was the one that was helping me look for places to put him because he was dying. But anyway, did a clinical trial, so amazing. But it was all immunotherapy, and if you know anything about immunotherapy, it's all gut-related and nutrition, because your body is what's fighting cancer. So it makes me love y'all even more, because everything that you do is so important, so important. But anyway, but back to Ben, because that's why I'm here. But Ben actually had some folate. He has a P10, and he has an MTHFR gene mutation, so that means he doesn't reduce folate, if you're familiar with that. So I miscarried 6 times before we had Ben. He was our 7th. So it was actually me not being able to reduce the folate was one of the reasons why I kept miscarriaging. So having folate, which is something that Ben and I both take every single day. B12 was something that a lot of the processing delays that he had with autism, once we started supplementing B12 every 3 days, which is what the neurologist suggested. There's a lot of research on that on PubMed if you want to look it up, but his actually processing speed started getting faster, and a lot of the things that were happening, he was actually getting better and better. So we actually were on a special diet. He actually has a gluten allergy, and with the folate issues, he does not need to have dairy. So he actually does have a gluten-free and dairy-free diet. And all these years, it's been difficult. I've had a lot of nutritionists look at me and just say, you don't need to do that, because their automatic response is, that isn't something that helps kids on the spectrum. So my always pushback is, you know what, we really don't know what causes this for most of the kids. So if it is helping, if you could just have an open mind of if it is helping them. Sometimes it is anecdotal, but sometimes it really is. So a lot of the inflammation that he had in his gut that was causing a lot of the issues with the autism, taking those inflammatory foods out helped him. So when I see people now, I'm a lot more confident because I understand and I can advocate for him. But just know that when mamas tell you things, sometimes they're right, sometimes they are wrong. But if you could just listen and know that, we're with these kids 24/7. And when we do see things, sometimes looking at the symptoms is what helps you help us help them, which is why you're here. And we're so thankful that you are. But Ben look at him, y'all, he loves ribs. Or it might be wings, I can't remember which one that is. He would kill me if he knew y'all saw that picture. But he is so cute and has developed, and thankfully we haven't done any growth hormones or anything else, but I really think it's because we've given him whole food, and it really has helped him grow and making sure that he gets the right amounts of carbohydrates, proteins, and fats, and that we're giving him a balanced diet. And so we've had a lot of people along the way help us with that. So I'll pass it to my next, who's the next one? Is it Tracy?
Oh.
It's Celine.
Ooh, how can I follow this?
I don't know. That's what I was
Oh
thinking.
my goodness. I'm Celine Russell. I'm the youngest of this. I'm new to this journey, so they're probably starting an ascent. Susan started this, and then I'm just now learning about all of this. That's my little boy Pace and my husband Brooke. And Pace is 6 years old. He's on the autism spectrum, and he has other things along with that, sensory processing disorder. He was diagnosed at 4 years old, and what's interesting when I thought about what I would share today is that, kind of like what Susan said, moms kind of just know things. So when y'all meet with moms, I'm learning to trust my intuition. Even people question me, even getting Pace diagnosed. I asked several teachers. I had, and they were like, he's fine, he's just immature, and I just kept following that instinct because I just felt like something was off, and I'm really glad that he got the help that he did young. We've seen huge gains with Pace. He's in kindergarten, and oh, there he is. There's some more pics of him. And what's so amazing about it, I love to kind of speak to the hope part of this, is that he's in kindergarten now, and most of his peers don't know that he's on the spectrum. And it's not something, every parent has a different way they approach, and that's great. But for us, we just kind of just tell people who need to know in his life. So none of his little friends know or anything. He's doing so well. For him, with nutrition, even before he was diagnosed, I could just see when we would leave a birthday party or we'd leave, I could just see the way food affected him. And it really does affect his behavior. Like Susan said, it's just, the gluten is a big problem. I can tell when he's eating bread. Dairy for us is just not great for him. Refined sugars. So it's hard because you want them to be a kid, but I also know how it affects him. Recently, I took him to my parents' house to let him spend the night, and he didn't really sleep. And he ended up telling me that he had a big bowl of ice cream right before he went to sleep. So I wasn't very appreciative of that for the grandparents, but it really does affect him. So I'm on a journey educating myself, and I just am so thankful for what you guys are doing, as it really does make a difference. I am always trying to find creative ways with the gluten-free, anything I can do to help him. Is hugely beneficial, and Susan helps me so much. She's one of my mentors, so I'm very thankful to have her help. But we do the B12 as well for him, and it's seen huge gains. He's on great supplements. The challenge with him when y'all do work with families is that with the sensory processing, he is. We know kids are picky, but take it to the next level picky. So here I am as this mom trying to help my child who won't eat certain textures. So, we've had OT and help us in the past with, just to get him. I remember the day he bit into an apple and I cried because he finally would do it. So it's this challenge as parents to get your kid to do. I love health and well. It's health and wellness, and it's just the challenge. But just pushing through that, continuing to encourage moms that just to find something healthy that they'll eat. So I'm new on this journey, but I'm seeing that when we can get him taking all the vitamins, doing all the things, that he is like a different child. So I hope that encourages y'all today in your journey, because it does work. Nutrition does. I think that's helpful.
I guess I'm next. Hi, I'm Joanne Moulon. I have a daughter with cerebral palsy. She's 28. She's a student at Auburn. She was born 6 weeks premature. My placenta abrupted, and her diagnosis didn't come until 10 months. When she was born, she had to be on oxygen for 5 days, and she was in the hospital 2.5 weeks. And when she came home, we thought, everything was fine. And but she was delayed, like on her motor skills. She wasn't sitting at 7 months. There were just things that she was delayed on, and the doctor kept saying she'll catch up. She'll catch up. She was just preemie, and finally at 10 months they took her and did an MRI of the brain, and they found the CP. So that's when they diagnosed her. Thankfully, I had a good nutrition background because I graduated with a degree in exercise science. So I had some nutrition in college, and I was working at the Pritikin Longevity Center Resort and Spa in Miami. It was right on the beach. It's my perfect first job out of college. And so I learned a lot about nutrition working with the nutritionists there. I worked with cardiologists. Everybody that came through there had to have a treadmill stress test, and they went through a thorough nutrition background, what they ate, a lot of the people had heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. Many of them were walking time bombs, and a lot of them were people that had heart disease that they came to Pritikin to avoid having heart surgery. And they went through the program. There's a lot of research at Pritikin, and you can go onto their website. It's Pritikin, PRITIKIN.com. There's a lot of information on nutrition. So it helped us in the way that it helped Ashley, and I'm going to go through some of the things that we did with her. I would always puree fresh fruits and vegetables for her baby food. And so we ate, Pritikin goes by, it's a high carbohydrate, low fat lifestyle plan. It's not a diet. It's not something you go on and off. But they're all about eating pure fruits, vegetables, high complex carbohydrates, which are whole grains, whole wheat, flour, anything with whole wheat flour, not refined flour, oats, brown rice, quinoa, those are just some examples. Starchy foods like potatoes, yams, and beans. Vegetables, they say 5 or more servings daily, and a variety of colors with your vegetables. Fruits, 4 or more servings daily. 2 servings of dairy, non-fat, milk or yogurt. We always had dark lean greens like vegetables. Leafy green vegetables. Okay, there we go. So lots of green vegetables. They say protein, you should only have no more than 1 serving a day, which is 3.5 ounces of cooked, and the size would be like a size of a deck of cards. Just so very low, not a whole lot of meat, mostly chicken, fish in the diet. We ate a lot of beans and brown rice, which is a complete protein. And these are excellent for reducing your cholesterol. So a lot of the people that came through Pritikin had high cholesterol, and so they taught them how to eat just low fat and low cholesterol diet. They said to go wild on the veggies, the oatmeal and the brown rice, and whole fruits. So that was what we lived. That was our lifestyle. We lived that way, and it, a child with CP that's always in a wheelchair, because my daughter had, she wasn't able to get out of the wheelchair by herself, so the only form of exercise she ever had was swimming. I took her swimming all the time and was able to teach her how to swim in the water, but she could never get her head out of the water unless I lifted her head out of the water. That was the only form of exercise she had. So a lot of children with CP, if they're not eating healthy, they're going to gain a lot of weight. It's going to be harder to lift them. It's going to be harder on the families. So they have to eat healthy and do whatever form of exercise they can do. So we lived by that Pritikin program. And if I found that if we went out to eat like a lot of fast food places, she was so constipated, and she would, it'd be maybe a week or so before she'd go to the bathroom. So we just live by that, and as long as we follow that, as you can see by the picture, she's thin. She's never been overweight because she's always eaten healthy. And we always make sure she has lots of fresh fruits and vegetables. And there she is skiing. She likes to water ski at Lay Lake. We do that at Lay Lake. She's done surfing, she's done horseback riding, adaptive snow skiing. So those are her sports. But they're not, like, she doesn't get a whole lot of, that's, she's being pulled by the skis, so it's not like, but so it's really swimming is her best activity. But another thing about Pritikin that I just kind of wanted to go over, because it really is a life change, and they've done a lot of research on it. They did a research study with 12 of the nation's leading nutrition scientists. I went onto their website today, and I was just kind of reviewing, because there's so much information you can get on diet and exercise, a lot on nutrition. And so they had 12 of the nation's leading nutritionist scientists that got together to answer the following question: what are the elements of a healthy diet? And the study was published in the Journal of American College of Cardiology, led by Dr. Penny Chris Etherton of Penn State University, and they described an evidence-based healthy dietary pattern as being high in fruits, high in vegetables, high in whole grains, high in legumes like your beans, your lentils, your peas, limited amount of nuts, limited lean meats, including poultry and seafood, limited low-fat or non-dairy products, limited liquid vegetable oils, low in saturated trans and solid fats, low in sodium, low in added sugars, low in refined grains. Did I say, yeah, refined grains? And then like your white flours. And then 12 of the nation's leading nutritionist scientists got together to answer, oh wait, I already went over that, sorry. I'm going over here. Okay, so I want to tell you about the Pritikin eating plan. Has been found in more than 100 studies over the past 3 decades to be very beneficial for our hearts and our overall health. And there's one thing today, coconut oil. Everybody's talking about coconut oil is good, this and that. And you may have heard that it is, but Pritikin does not believe in coconut oil. They say coconut oil, which is highly publicized today, is not part of the Pritikin plan, nor was there any mention of it in the 12 nutrition scientists' healthy dietary plan. However, in the review of coconut oil, in the review they did discuss coconut oil. They said it and palm oil were #1 on the list of foods to avoid, followed by egg yolks, juices, and Southern-style diets, which include added fats, oils, fried foods, meats, and sugary drinks. And the team of the 12 researchers, they pointed out that the high saturated content in tropical oils, such as coconut and palm oil, they make them damaging for your heart, because they elevate your LDL cholesterol, the high cholesterol. And supporting their conclusion, there was also a recently published study in Nutrition Reviews, and it said that dissecting the results of the 21 studies that examined the effects of coconut oil and other coconut products, the authors found that compared with oils low in saturated fats, such as sunflower, safflower, and olive oil, coconut oil raised the LDL cholesterol levels. In other words, coconut oil is not only fattening, but it's also very unhealthy for our hearts. So that was the one study on coconut oil. And over the years of Pritikin, they always said olive oil or canola oil were the best oils. But we've lived by it, and it works. It works for us. And I saw it work for a lot of people that came through the program. I was there for over 6 years. I met my husband there. He was the director of food service, and yeah, we live that lifestyle. He's my private chef, but we've lived it, and I've seen it help a lot of people with heart disease. And the way we got to Birmingham is my husband actually was a private chef for a family that went through the Pritikin program, and the man had heart disease, so he wanted to live a healthy lifestyle. So he asked my husband to come cook for him here in Birmingham, and that's how it ended up here. But it works. I mean, just mainly, if you're eating healthy, whole foods that aren't processed, that's the main thing, just living healthy and eating fresh fruits, vegetables, lots of them.
Did she find it hard to do when she transitioned to college?
Oh yes, that's another thing. So when she transitioned, she was eating, they have tons of food trucks on campus. She was eating all the food truck foods and just, eating out a lot, eating a lot of processed foods, even though I told her that wasn't good. And we would send her like lots of food. When she would come home, I would send foods to keep in her refrigerator. But last summer, she went through a period of anxiety. Now, there was a couple of deaths, friends and family, that, a couple of deaths of people that she knew that she was really close to. But I really think that the food also had a lot to do with it, because she came home for the summer. She was going through major anxiety. I had to take her to a psychiatrist. We started, making sure she was eating healthy, and she was able to get through that. And she's not on medication anymore, but she was on it all summer. And it took from May, when she got home, May all the way up until, I would say, she skipped a whole semester because of this. So she usually comes home for the summer, but she also skipped her fall semester. And we just got her eating healthy, and she was able to get off the medication, and she's doing fine. So I really believe that has a lot to do with it. Just eating healthy can not only help with anxiety and depression, but just, it'll help you live longer in a lifetime. And also for children with special needs that are in wheelchairs that don't always get the exercise, healthy eating is so important for them as well.
Okay, that's not me, but that's not me either.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Must be pulled up on the wrong.
Okay,
Can
no
you
worries.
flip
My name's Tracy, and my son is now 17. His name is Remy, and he was diagnosed at 4 years old. But I had a placental infarct when he was born, and so he was very small. He was only 4 pounds when he was born. And I'm sure you all know about blood sugars. His was 4. And, I was a pediatric ICU nurse, NICU nurse. I'd never seen one that low. I mean, he literally was skin and bones. So nutrition was very important for us, and definitely in the first few years of life. So I breastfed, I pumped, and gave him as much as I could. Now, we didn't find out he had autism until 4, but I knew that he had differences. One of them was food aversions. And so by the time he got to be about 2, he'd only eat like 5 foods, which were chicken nuggets, French fries, and a couple of the other things. Luckily, he wasn't diagnosed at that time, but he was diagnosed with speech delay, and then a year later with a sensory processing disorder. So I had help of an occupational therapist who helped him get past, those food aversions. And the way she did it is there was this whole program about smell it, taste it, or smell it like it, taste it. I don't know if somebody's shaking their head, they may have heard of this, and it's this whole program about, you introduce one food over a month of time. And first, all they have to do is smell it. And we'd also let him play in it, because he also didn't want to touch his food. If I would feed him, his baby food and stuff, and if it touched his lips, he would flip out and not be able to eat anymore. If he sneezed during a meal and it got on his clothing or on his face, he'd just have a complete come apart. So we allowed him to play in his food and try to get over that sensory issue of what it felt like. And we'd keep, I would keep, and the occupational therapy would keep extensive notes about what foods we were introducing and how it would work. But at this point in time, my son eats everything. There's something he doesn't like. Oh, he doesn't like avocado, but he'll eat sushi and everything else. He really has gotten over that. As far as nutrition, I mean, these girls have really done a lot of research, which I never had to do. He didn't seem to have behaviors with his food, except if he didn't eat on time. I think it's because his blood sugar would drop. And he wouldn't be able to verbalize that he was hungry, but I would know it because his behavior would change that way. But it didn't seem like foods would affect him. Interestingly enough, my daughter, who's 3 years younger, began having belly pain. And, after about 2 weeks of the belly pain, we couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, well, let's just pull gluten, I can't remember how old she was at that point. I want to say about 8, so my son would have been about 11. And lo and behold, 3 days later, the belly pain went away. So then about 6 months later, it happened to him. And he started having this belly pain, so we pulled the gluten for him, same thing. And then 6 months later, me. So I pulled the gluten from my diet as well, and we all stopped having the belly pain. So I can, he never cheats. Like, when he decides on something, he just sticks with it. So he never cheats. My daughter cheats, and then she gets sick, and then she goes back to the gluten-free diet. And then same with me, I'll cheat, and I'll feel terrible, and then I go back to it. And so anyway, that has worked for us. And then the other thing that I decided, probably about around that same time, I'd seen an article in the Journal of Pediatrics that showed some correlation between pesticides and ADHD symptoms. And, I just looked today for the heck of it, and there's tons of articles related to this in different magazines like JAMA and other things that I can't remember, but there is a correlation between that. So we did go as organic as possible. It's almost impossible to go completely organic, but I just feel like, again, the whole foods and what we're putting into our bodies and all the processed foods is not doing our children, even the adults, any good. So if you can keep to a whole diet, we try not to eat out of a box. Sometimes we will, but if I can try to keep it organic at least, we do it that way. So that's really our story. Like I said, I didn't do a whole lot of research. Anytime I needed to know anything, I just asked Susan.
Me too.
She's done an extensive amount of research, so she's a wealth of information. So thank you all for doing what you do. We appreciate you.
Yeah.
And go get them.
So are there any questions that you have for our panel?
Can somebody talk a little bit about good experiences you've had with dietitians or bad experiences you've had with dietitians?
I don't think I've really had any because, I work in the critic and I learned it all from the dietitians there. So I would say it was all good because I lived it. I followed what they said and I lived it and I always felt good. All my meals were free there too, by the way. And if you ever want a good internship, that's a good place to go get an internship. And you're right there in Miami near the beaches. Nice. So internships, they do take nutritionists there.
I think I'm sold, y'all. Who else wants to go to Miami? For sure. I actually have had some great experiences with nutritionists just to be able to help us understand, folate, let's say for us, we actually have to take leucovorin, which is a folate in a pill, and we try to eat lots of spinach. And interestingly enough, the whole time I was pregnant, that's all I craved was spinach, which is to me just so interesting about our bodies. Now we've had some nutritionists in the hospital that have been very. Once they see autism and they see gluten-free and dairy-free diet, they've come in with, they're doing something next door. They've come in with a preconceived notion of what our family's like, and been very strong, opinionated on how we need to change that and how that really shouldn't be part of our regimen before really asking questions. And I think that's been a little bit of a struggle because you guys are so knowledgeable and you have degrees, which is great. And so it can be intimidating for a parent, so I know exactly what we do and why we do it because this is, we've been doing this for a long time. And I've had to advocate and learn to advocate. But it has been hard when I feel like I wasn't listened to and it was just more you feel like you have an idea of what's happening and And so that's been a challenge. But usually when you start to talk to them and say, well, we've done this testing or whatever, usually they'll come around. And, we've had some amazing nutritionists that have done stuff like, my child's had multiple surgeries, and even little things like, the popsicles in the hospital. I don't know if y'all know this, but they're full of dyes, and usually they're full of all kinds of yuck stuff, and the hospital food is horrible. And even if you're trying to do whole foods, and we did that for Ben probably the first 4 or 5 years, he didn't eat anything out of a box. And we kept seeing so many gains by changing his diet, so we kept doing it. But even in the hospital, we had to bring our own food, which is so sad. And even our own popsicles that were, more fruit-based instead of just, colored water. And that was sometimes a little bit of a struggle. But the last couple of surgeries that we've had, I've had the nutritionist bring us a refrigerator so we could put our stuff in, which was amazing. They're like, hey, we want to support what you're doing, and we know this is best for your child. How can we help? So that's been amazing. We've had more good than bad, but just those little helps, stuff like that has been great. For a nutrition,
Okay.
not for a
Yeah,
question.
we never worked with a nutritionist, but I did have one unfortunate incident with a physician who, my son wasn't even on the gluten-free diet at that point, but he was talking about it, and he was angry, like that these parents would go on this gluten-free diet and how dangerous it was. And I just couldn't understand why he was so resistant to something that made kids feel better. And there's certainly ways to eat appropriately on a gluten-free diet. So that kind of bugged me. I don't know why he was so angry about people's diet choices, but that was the only negative.
And I'm sure he cared, and he wanted to care. And I think there's some people that do it wrong. Obviously, if we're sitting here in front of you, we've done our research, and we're making sure that our children are balanced with what they're eating. But I do think it's, usually when I come against somebody that doesn't agree with me, I know that their heart is in the right place. And so it helps me not be mad.
Are there more questions in the audience? Not about Predica.
No.
Were any of you in an early intervention program? That was not clear to me.
Yeah.
And was it, did you go to a center, or was the center coming to you, and was it at a frequency about once a month?
My daughter started an early intervention program she was 3. Well, she started down at United Cerebral Palsy in their preschool program when she was 3. Actually 15 months, because she started in Miami at United Cerebral Palsy after she was diagnosed. And then when we moved here to Birmingham, she was at the UCP. It was downtown at the time. And I remember she gained a whole lot of weight because it was all the southern foods. And I remember her cheeks just got so big, and she had gained a lot of weight eating the food there. But as soon as she got out of there and into the elementary school, and I was mainly packing her lunch instead of her eating the school foods. She started losing the weight again. Her cheeks weren't so chubby, but she did start the early intervention in the school system, and it was and she went. I think it was 2 days a week. And then once she reached kindergarten, she was there, 5 days. But so from 3 to 5, she was in early intervention. I think it was 2 or 3 days a week.
Could you comment for us on how school lunch, was school lunch ever modified for any of your children?
Well, it could have
How did
been,
that go?
if you asked for it, they would modify it to a certain extent. But I just always packed her lunch because I knew it was going to be healthier than what they had there.
I found out my little boy was drinking chocolate milk at school. Oh my gosh, I freaked out. I found out that my little boy was having regular cow's milk, chocolate milk every day at lunch. And of course, like we don't buy, y'all probably have your opinions. I don't buy cow's milk at home. And so I like started sweating. I was like, oh my gosh. So they make sure that he drinks his water at lunch. So it's part of his IEP at school. And we were in early intervention as well. His speech delay diagnosis came before the autism diagnosis. So we got him with a private practice so we could get him help when he was 3 until he could get in with early intervention. Early intervention takes a really long time to get your child in with. And then they would come to our house, the speech therapist would, and then he had some issues with drooling, so that an occupational therapist would come as well to the house with early intervention.
And we, when my son was diagnosed, he was diagnosed in Pennsylvania, and they had an autism waiver in that state, which means that any child, and now up to birth to death in that state, a person with autism, it gets basically Medicaid, no matter what your finances are. And so I actually had a team of 20 people working with my child before we left Pennsylvania, all paid for by the state of Pennsylvania. So we had an occupational therapist, we had physical therapists, we had a special education classroom, we had aides that would come to my house, aides that would come with me to the grocery store. We actually had a counselor that would come to our house because, our marriages kind of fall apart at that time too. She would come to our house. She worked with my husband and I, she worked with my son. It was incredible. So when we came to Birmingham, that all came to a screeching halt because we didn't have that. Now, as of a year or two ago, they were able to expand our insurance coverage because before that, autism was not paid for with your medical insurance. I don't know if y'all knew that, but that diagnosis was not covered under any insurance. So they have gotten that passed, and now that's covered. But the only way that we got services for my child at that time when we moved here was we had the capability of putting him at Mitchell's Place, which is a school for children with autism. I actually went to the state and I said, look, you have a responsibility of this child, and what they proposed was to send him to a special education classroom in Tarrant, which was very scary. I don't know if y'all have ever been there, but it's not somewhere where I'd put my child, and they claimed they could give him all that he got at Mitchell's Place. But anyway, what was the other question they asked? Oh, and then as far as school lunches, we just never bothered. We went ahead and packed lunches as well because I knew he wouldn't eat that food.
So we haven't, we are early intervention users as well, consumers of that. So we're actually at Homewood, and my child, I guess because he's been eating the stuff that I've been feeding him his whole life, if he has to eat lunch, if we don't have whatever's there, he usually gets mad because he'd rather have his packed lunch. And so they would do stuff like on ice cream day, I would just bring my own ice cream for him so he had something. We never wanted him not to have it. Like they always have, there's so much sugar in schools. I mean, they always have all these parties all the time. And so if they had a birthday lunch or whatever, so I would just have to make a gluten-free cupcake and send it to school. That's how we handled it.
I want you to know that there is a regulation that the school is supposed to accommodate for children with special needs related to their menu, related to them. And I think the problem is that many parents don't know that. Or but you usually have to have a doctor's, as a dietitian, I could not get that, I could not give you the prescription, but your pediatrician can give that to you. And it's unfortunate that more people don't know about that, I think, because it's kind of a good socialization for children to participate in school lunch. But all over the country, I have parents tell me, no, we just pack the lunch, But there are regulations out there that say that the lunch should be modified. Mm-hmm. And they should provide gluten-free if that's what's required.
Wow.
I think the problem with us, my personal experience is that he was never diagnosed with a gluten sensitivity. He was never diagnosed with celiac. We just did it because I knew that it hurt his belly. So I'd probably have trouble getting a physician's order to get that diet, so.
It's good information to know. Thank you for letting us know.
I was just kind of curious more about, once these kids have grown up and just how your daughter is navigating college with her diagnosis and just.
Oh, how she's getting through. She has caregivers that come in to take care of her. So she's not able to get out of her wheelchair by herself. So in the morning she has someone come get her out of bed. And she comes in, gets her to class, and then comes back and feeds her lunch. She keeps, she stays in class by herself. And then she has a note taker that takes notes for her. The teacher always sends her slides through email. And then her caregiver comes back at lunch, feeds her lunch, takes her back to her dorm. And then she might be there a couple hours, 2 to 3 hours by herself. But she's all set up with like Alexa, she's got Siri on her phone, she's got Life Alert, so she's, got all that safety features set up. And then at night, she's got a different caregiver that comes and puts her to bed. So from 5 to 9, she's there. And then she's there at night by herself. And then the next morning, it all starts all over again. Yeah. And she's been able to, it's really helped her independence go in there too, because she's gotten to where she can even get to her classes by herself. If in the event that somebody, maybe they showed up to get her up, but if they couldn't come back, she could still, she's had that happen to her where she was able to get back to her dorm by herself, or even ask if she got lost. But she's starting to learn her way around, so it's helped her independence a lot going there. She did get stuck in the elevator a couple of times, but because she would ask somebody to push the elevator button, so they pushed the elevator button, got her in, and then they walked off, and then the doors closed, and she couldn't push the elevator button to go where she needed. So she called me on the phone and said, "Mom, I'm stuck in the elevator." I'm like, "Well, actually, I'm sure someone's going to push that button in a little while." And sure enough, they did. And she was able to get out.
Oh, gosh.
So here's a question for the panel. Some of the students here are going to be caring for children with different dietary needs. What's your best advice to them in their careers?
Y'all want to go first?
Sure. I think for us, just stay current, and I'm sure you guys all do this already, but just stay current on the research, because what's amazing that is so fun to be in this age is that what we know is just exploding all of the time. And the research they're doing, especially on the spectrum, since that's what I spend my most time looking at, but just in general for anything, it's just amazing. And UAB is just one of the leaders in doing that. So I think just staying current, because when I walk in and I have a medical journal article and a physician or someone else doesn't know about it, from a parent, I lose a little confidence if they're not staying up on what's happening. And again, I understand that mouse model and other various things, it takes years to really change the course of how things are being treated. But a lot of what we've done to help my son have been clinical trials that we've just happened to jump in, and for autism, a lot of them have been related to nutrients or supplements, which is great. But I just think staying current on the research is super important. You got anything?
No. I have a fun story. If y'all ever have young children that, like my child, that he's so picky, so we really wanted him to eat spinach, and my husband got him to watch Popeye. Y'all are too young to know Popeye. Do you know Popeye? Okay. Y'all, he loves spinach now because he wants to be strong like Popeye, and he will go and get it out of the thing and eat it plain. And so just little creative ways for families, and then him seeing other kids, like if I know my sister's kids are really healthy eaters, if he sees it modeled with other children, he wants to do it, because when mom's saying it, it's not, cool. But and then we just talk about food all the time. We'll talk, and I try to do it in a way that's not we have a good relationship with food, but he'll ask me now, I mean, he's 6, he'll say, on the scale, Mom, how healthy is this? Is this medium healthy, really healthy, not so healthy? So just like coming up with creative ways to have those conversations with kids makes it like fun, and we talk about how fast it's going to make him run and all that. But Popeye is a good one for you.
Any other questions?
You mentioned smell it, lick it, taste it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us more about how that went?
Sure. So one of the reasons that we did it is when the occupational therapist started working on him with foods, she had him suck up some applesauce through a straw. And when that hit the back of his mouth, he just went ballistic. And she's like, oh, I mean, he had a horrible gag reflex as well as the aversion to food, plus he had reflux. So just it was a setup for failure. But so the smell it, lick it, taste it was, you choose a food, like peas. And you'd make a big bowl of peas and you just let him play in it. And you just say, all you have to do is smell it. Because he didn't want anything to do with it, And so you don't have to taste it. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to eat it. You just have to smell. We would just like you to smell it. And then, we'd do that for a few days. And then the next thing we'd say, okay, all you have to do is lick it. That's it. You don't even have to taste it. You just have to lick it. And we'd do that for a few days. And then we'd do, okay, all you have to do is taste it. And so by the end of it, he would just get used to it. And it was a matter of introducing a new food like once a month. And it seems like that once we started doing that, he was more apt to try things without going through the whole program. But we kept detailed notes of, everything we were trying and how it was working and all of that stuff. And it was very laborious at first, but I'm so glad we did it because now, like I said, he'll eat anything. He'll eat sushi. Salad, he loves salad. He's extremely healthy. He's still extremely thin. It took us a long time to get on the growth chart, because he was 4 pounds when he was born.
But it's also super tall.
But he is tall too. He's 6'2"
Right.
now. Yeah, but I think he weighs like 150 or something. So.
And how old was he when you started this millet?
That was about three-ish, because he would only eat like chicken nuggets, fries, and I can't even remember what, maybe cheese, all the terrible foods, but nothing green. Sure.
So we had the same, my son went to Mitchell's place as well, and the eating was one of our main concerns, and they had the feeding program there, and they used this. Mm-hmm. And that's how we were able to get Pace to eat an apple. So the foods that we got him was an apple, carrots, and strawberries, something else. Mm-hmm. And they used the same way, and it works. It really does. It's amazing to see him eat these things.
I heard this one story about this child with autism who only wanted a certain type of juice, and it was like V8 Splash or something. But he could tell a different lot number of the juice. That's how sensitive they are to different foods. They did a taste test, and he figured out which is the one he liked by according to the different lot number.
I believe that. This is the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
think-
think to be a hog, but
Pardon?
you mentioned some supplements that your son
Yes.
share those.
So I've learned a lot from Susan.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one.
She's the trailblazer.
She's the trailblazer. One of the doctors we went to recommended certain supplements, like a multivitamin, and I tried all of them, but my son will not take them. So it's just a matter of finding which one that your child will accept. So we have found one for him called Simple Spectrum, and I will mix it with honey. It's a powder, and it's a great. We do that. We do B12. We do B12 injections 3 days. Every 3 days. Mm-hmm. We do that in his sleep. We put, he doesn't know we do this. I get a Band-Aid and put lidocaine on the Band-Aid when he's asleep. And we give him the shot in his sleep. And this morning he woke up, he's like, why is this Band-Aid on me? He's so mad. And I found, we said, it's your special medicines in your Band-Aid. I found these Band-Aids at Target called Welly that are good for sensitive skin. Because the one this morning wasn't that, and I'm telling you, he was so upset about taking that Band-Aid off. Because his skin's so sensitive. So I've got to go back to Target and get my Welly Band-Aids. But we do that. We do, the probiotics are huge. One of the doctors we go to has us doing a different probiotic every 3 months. And he will take those. Susan can really speak to this more than me. That's the ones.
Yeah.
I think for the research, if you look at Dr. Richard Fry, he is out of Arizona. He has done a tremendous amount of research for kids on the spectrum. A lot of them have methylation issues, so they need those methyl groups from the B12, and that's why we're supplementing that. A lot of the kids have mitochondrial dysfunction, so we're giving them carnitine, acetylcarnitine. Of course, they've been tested. This is not just supplements that we're giving them willy-nilly. This is medically tested that they have deficiencies, and so that's why. So we do carnitine. Vitamin D is something that a lot of these kids are incredibly low. Usually they're in the teens, so we do high dose of vitamin D just to be able to get that up. Usually B vitamins, because your gut flora processes those, and a lot of our kids have horrible gut flora. And I know that most of the research that I've seen, what changes your gut flora faster than anything else is whole foods. And really that's what we try to do, but until they can kind of jump start, a lot of times they do suggest that we do give probiotics. But we also do, just for our child, because there's so many things that he struggles with from a processing perspective. I think the biggest thing for him is giving him the leucovorin, which is the folinic acid, because of that gene mutation. That was really just a huge thing. But usually if you look at the methylation cycles for them, is a lot of the supplementation within that cycle is super helpful. A lot of the kids have very low glutathione, and so everything that looks into that cycle and supports that cycle is something else a lot of kids on the spectrum. But if you look at Dr. Richard Fry, and really there's lots of people, but he's really the one that we've seen him since Ben's been 4. And so he's the one who's done a lot of the research on what do kids on the spectrum need from a supplement perspective. And the great thing is, hopefully, as he gets older, we'll be able to reduce what he's having to take. So.
I think one of the main things with any child is just to start them young, eating healthy.
Yeah.
Just, giving them that variety of different healthy foods, and they're more likely going to be able to eat those as they get older.
Yeah.
And we also do fish oil as well. We didn't mention that, fish oil.
What do you do with your fish oil in terms of administration?
He'll take it with a capsule. He can do the capsules.
Thank God for OTs. That's who taught my child how to take pills. Oh, that was so beautiful.
Yeah, my child just started taking pills about 3 years ago.
They took, the ham hock, if y'all are Southerns, you can do a soup from that. They actually just grabbed that bag of beans and started with the smallest bean, and then, practice from that, and they can now take
Well, thank you all for your wisdom and advice. And